All right, welcome. This is DB Talkin Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy January 28th. It's a special day for me, um, specifically because it is my birthday. We do have a lot to get into. Sorry I wasn't with you guys yesterday, but I'm here now. Um, yeah, the offensive coordinator search continues for the Philadelphia Eagles. Surprisingly, the offensive coordinator search continues. There's been a few names that have been taken off the board. There have been a few names that have been added to the mix, and there have been a few names that have gotten second interviews. So we're going to talk about all of that. We're also going to discuss what this could mean moving forward and how just the state of the interview process in general for the Philadelphia Eagles and their offensive coordinator search. Yeah, I don't believe that it's going as planned. If you just to jump in into it, I don't believe it's going as planned. One, and secondly, um, there's a part of me still that doesn't believe that they actually know what they're doing. But we're gonna get it. We're gonna get into that. We'll have lengthy conversations about it for sure. But I do want to address the names that have been added, the names that have been taken off the board. So let's go ahead and start with Joe Brady, who was the offensive coordinator for the Bills. The Eagles did interview Joe Brady. They did have interest in bringing in Joe Brady, but Joe Brady was actually promoted this week by the Bills to from offensive coordinator to head coach. And there is Bisbee just resting on my shoulders as comfortably as he possibly can. Anyway, yeah, he has some opinions too, but I don't have a cat to human translator, so unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to make out what he's saying. But I'm sure he would say that the offensive coordinator search for the Philadelphia Eagles has been absolutely ridiculous. So, moving on. Well, yeah. So it looks like Joe Brady's off the board. The Buffalo Bills have gone ahead and promoted him from offensive coordinator to head coach. However, there's a couple candidates that the Eagles have shown interest in that probably is garnering outrage from the fans, and that is Davis Webb, and then more importantly, the one that's probably garnering more outrage from the fans is quarterbacks coach for the Green Bay Packers, Sean Mannion. So the thing about Sean Mannion was a backup quarterback. He was a career backup quarterback up until 2023. And 2023 is when he got a offensive assistant role. So he's only been a staff member for 2 years. Now, my thing about that, and they brought him in for a second interview as well. So obviously there's something that intrigued them, but my faith in the Philadelphia Eagles intrigue at this point isn't very high, to be quite honest with you. Because I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it a few more times throughout this stream, which is I just don't think that they have any fucking idea as to what they're doing or what they're looking for or anything of that nature. So, bringing in Sean Mannion for a second interview when he's only got 2 years of experience, and none of those 2 years of experience include play calling. Yeah, I have a problem. I have a problem with that. And he's been an offensive assistant with the Green Bay Packers. That doesn't necessarily excite me either. To be completely honest with you, because we know Jordan Love, who's the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. We know that he can do a good job in the regular season. We for sure as hell know that. But he chokes in the playoffs. So would I be outraged if the Eagles actually went with Sean Mannion? Yeah, I would be outraged. As a Philadelphia Eagles fan, yeah, I would be absolutely outraged. you know, so here's what I'm hoping. Obviously this the pass game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, he's still technically on the board. I actually haven't heard much news um in regards to his name lately. Um but if the Eagles could get him for the offense coordinator role, that would be absolutely huge. I think that he would potentially be a steal at the offensive coordinator um, position. So Nathan Shieldhouse, um, that's kind of the guy. That's kind of the guy that I want. That's the guy that I want the most at this point. However, speaking on this entire search and everything like that, there was a bomb that was dropped by Adam Schefter this morning, and Adam Schefter this morning basically said that he pretty much said that we should probably know later this week as to who the offensive coordinator is going to be, and that there might be also some other changes as well that we could be in store for. Now, he kind of left it at that when he was speaking on 97.5 The Fanatic this morning in Philadelphia. But Adam Schefter is not one of those guys. He's one of the most well-respected. He's one of the most well-respected inside guys in sports. So I mean, he doesn't just drop hints like that when they don't mean something. So what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? That there could be more changes instead of just the office coordinator position, and it could be big. It could be big news, which is the way that he was kind of insinuating it. My brain jumps to a bunch of different places. Now, obviously, I think about, well, maybe it could mean that Jeff Stoutland, the run game coordinator and offensive line coach, is retiring, but that's not. I mean, it's big news, but it's not the big news that. It's not the type of big news that he kind of insinuated was going to happen. I mean, it's certainly. I don't want to diminish that. Like that's huge. That would be huge news. But I want to take this into a different direction just for a second. Now, there were reports last year when the Eagles started 2-2. Now, obviously, they went on to win the Super Bowl last year, but when they started 2-2, Nick Sirianni was in jeopardy of losing his job. There were reports that this year Nick Sirianni was actually not as much this year, but the thing is his job security has been thought about by the Eagles front office, by Jeffrey Lurie. I want to go back to the wild card game against the San Francisco 49ers. And when Jeffrey Lurie had a public spat with our star player, A.J. Brown, ran all the way, probably ran 20 to 30 yards down the sideline just to yell in A.J. Brown's face for not catching the ball. Do you think that looked good? Do you think that looked good to Jeffrey Lurie? Do you think Jeffrey Lurie liked that? No, he didn't. So now I get it. This might be a little out there. This might be a little far-fetched. It might be a little didgeridoo, but the Eagles have reportedly cast a wide net, when it comes in terms to this to this offensive coordinator position. And I've mentioned this before, which is they're obviously gathering intel. They do it every time they need to search for like an offensive assist, like a offensive assistant that's reputable, that's at a reputable position, like the offense coordinator, defense, or quarterbacks coach or anything like that, head coach. But to make my point is, what if they're looking for somebody who could potentially replace Nick Sirianni? What if Nick Sirianni is actually on the hot seat sooner than we think? Because I'll tell you one thing. Everybody in the locker room loves AJ Brown. Howie Roseman loves AJ Brown. Jeffrey Lurie loves AJ Brown. And when your head coach, who is supposed to keep everything under control, the guy that is supposed to be the players' coach because he doesn't do anything else, has a public spat on the sideline with his star wide receiver. Yeah, I can guarantee you that Jeffrey Lurie didn't like that one bit. So, I come back to this. Maybe the reason why this is taking so long is because they're actually looking for somebody who can take over the head coaching position, and what their plans are to bring in an offensive coordinator. And the fact that Adam Schefter actually dropped that bomb this morning, and again, I understand that like it could be a little far-fetched, but is it? Is it far-fetched? It would be somewhat shocking. Probably more shocking than not shocking. More shocking than somewhat shocking. But is that the type of thing that is needed? And maybe. I mean, you have all of these offensive coordinator candidates like turning the job away. And granted, like the Eagles haven't really given the offer to anybody yet. Not really. But maybe they had their sights set on Mike McDaniel and they didn't, and they weren't prepared enough. That's also a possibility. So, are they gathering intel? Are they doing interviews, not just for one position, but for the possibility that whoever comes in could be the head coach? Not either this year or next year. And maybe it's a foregone conclusion that they're tired of Nick Sirianni. Now, look. I love his passion as a head coach. I think it's right for the city of Philadelphia, but it crossed the line in that wild card game. And there have been times where it's kind of borderline on crossing the line, but it crossed the line in that wild card game. You don't yell at your star players in front of the entire world. You just don't. It shows that there is some internal frustration going on. In fact, I'll even do it like this. Terrell Owens doing sit-ups in his driveway in 2005 when he was sent home from the NovaCare complex in Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni arguing with AJ Brown in front of the entire world on Wild Card Weekend. A player who has expressed frustration with the offense. AJ Brown was right. AJ Brown was right. And you know what? I don't think AJ Brown had frustrations with Kevin Patullo. I don't think he had frustrations with Jalen Hurts. As many people, as much as people would like to think that the frustration is with the quarterback, I don't think it's with the quarterback. I don't think the frustration from AJ Brown is with Jalen Hurts. I do, however, think that it may be with Nick Sirianni. And that's certainly something to think about. That's certainly something to think about. Now, who are the candidates? Who are the candidates? If something like that were to happen, who are the candidates? Because I can tell you right now that Davis Webb, the quarterback or the offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, or Sean Mannion, pass game coordinator, whatever the fuck he is from the Green Bay Packers, is going to take over the head coaching position for the Philadelphia Eagles. I sincerely doubt that. But maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it is a Charlie Weiss Jr. Maybe it is Brian Dable. Which I'm pretty sure it's not Brian Dable. Brian Dable pretty much is 95% confirmed he's going to Tennessee to coach Cam Ward. Maybe it is Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury, who they interviewed for the head coaching position. Cliff Kingsbury, who they interviewed for the offensive coordinator position. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. From here. But here is one thing that I will say for sure is that I'm sure they didn't expect for this search to take this long. It's been about 14 days now. 14 days since they've been without an offensive coordinator. Do you think that is there? Do you think that there's nothing to be looked at there? 14 days. Now I get it. Like, they want to do their due diligence. I completely get it. They wanted to cast out a wide net to gather intel, but there comes a point where those are just excuses. Those are just excuses. And here's the thing. I don't think that they want to get rid of AJ Brown. I think that, like I said, I think that they love AJ Brown. And obviously, as we know, in the final press conference, when asked about the future of AJ Brown, Howie Roseman said, "It's hard to find great players in the NFL, and AJ is a great player." He also went on to say that, we want to retain our great players. So Howie has no interest in wanting to get rid of AJ Brown. He doesn't have any interest. In fact, he wants to do everything that he possibly can to make it work with AJ Brown. And does that include a significant coaching change? Nick Sirianni. I'll say it again. Adam Schefter dropped the bomb this morning that not only could there be offense coordinator changes, which obviously we do know we're waiting for the offense coordinator position to be filled, but could the other big change be Nick Sirianni? I understand it's a hypothetical. I understand that it might be a little far-fetched at this point in the process. But if you find somebody who you think is ready to fill those shoes, maybe the Eagles are at the point where like we need to take some drastic changes. Maybe they were. And it's not a maybe. I can tell you for a fact, Jeffrey Lurie did not like the Nick Sirianni, AJ Brown spat on the sidelines in the wild card round. I can tell you that for a fact. Jeffrey Lurie is very much cares about the public appearance of the team, and that's not something that should occur. That's not something that your head coach should do in front of the entire world. So maybe this offensive coordinator search is not just an offensive coordinator search. Maybe it's not just about gathering intel. Maybe it is. They're possibly searching for a new head coach as well. Maybe. There was a report, honestly, earlier this week that Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman meet with the candidates first, and then Nick Sirianni meets with the candidates separately, instead of them all being in the same room together. And that's interesting. That's an interesting nugget, because you would think they would all be in the same room together. I think that they're trying to get different ideas, and they're keeping those ideas private from each other, from front office to head coach, in terms of the perspectives of these candidates. That's what I think. So I do think that Adam Schefter pretty much said it this morning. There's going to be big news that comes later in the week. He hinted at it, and it's not just the offensive coordinator position. And I believe that there's a feeling I will say that I've had all week that it's probably not just about the offensive coordinator position. It's probably not. They're either looking for right now or to replace in the near future the head coach. Because having a spat on the sideline with your star player who is beloved in the locker room and by the front office in front of the entire world is not a good look. It's not a good look. In fact, we all knew that Nick Sirianni was emotional and passionate, and that's great. It's great for the city of Philadelphia. But what that showed was immaturity. What that showed was immaturity. And Jeffrey Lurie is not about that. Anyway, this is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Please hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment box, drop a chat in the live chat box. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Wherever you want to steer this conversation, I'm open to it. Happy Wednesday. Happy January 28th. It's a special day for me, I will say again, just because it is my 35th birthday. Crazy. Time flies. Time flies in your 30s, I guess. The 20s felt a little long. but yeah, in your 30s, it flies by. It felt like just yesterday. I was like 33 or 32 or something. But today I am 35. But yeah. Let me jump back to this. I really hope that they don't fucking hire Sean Mannion as their offense coordinator. That would be such a horrid move. He's got 2 years of coaching experience, and he doesn't even have play calling experience to go along with that. 2 years ago, he was a backup quarterback. He was a career backup quarterback. Awful. It would be an awful move. And the dude gets a second interview. I don't understand it. I don't understand what they're doing. I think some of these candidates are absolute bullshit. I think some of these candidates are absolute bullshit, and they're just looking for intel, and they're honestly just putting up a masquerade, kind of like a facade as to what they're actually doing. I think Nick Sirianni's seat is hot. I think it's red hot. I think it's absolutely hotter than we may fucking think. And like I said, I go back to that public spat on the sideline with AJ Brown. Jeffrey Lurie did not like that. He didn't like it one bit. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. AJ Brown is a guy that is loved by everyone in the fucking locker room. He is somebody who is loved by everyone in the front office. He is a star player. He is a captain. I can tell you this right now. You go into your workplace, right? And you're not a manager, but you're second in command. You're not your boss, but you're second in command to your boss. And then after that you have your team, right? Now what if your boss, and obviously this happens all the time in the workplace in modern day America, but like your boss starts talking shit to you and speaks horribly of you in front of your entire team, when your entire job is to make sure that you can guide that team. How would you feel? Probably pretty shitty. And that's what Nick Sirianni did with AJ Brown. AJ Brown being one of the captains of the Philadelphia Eagles, and also a beloved player in the Eagles locker room, a beloved player in the front office, a beloved player throughout the entire league. Jonathan Harvey, thanks for joining in, my man. I appreciate the chat. Please like, please subscribe. Afternoon DB, browsing YouTube and found your channel and decided to check you out. Eagles have work to do. Disgusted with Christian Parker going to Dallas. Yeah, man. I mean, there's obviously a couple things. To address there. Yeah, the Eagles have a ton of work to do, and not only obviously, as we've been talking about, we got to fill the offensive coordinator position, and it looks like, or it sounds like, according to reports, that there's going to be many other staffing changes as well. I'm just basing that based off of the hint that Adam Schefter kind of dropped this morning. But yeah, no, our defensive backs coach, Christian Parker, obviously credited with the development of Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, becoming the defensive coordinator in Dallas. Obviously, I'm going to give the guy kudos and say good for him, just man to man, like, congratulations on the promotion. But Dallas. No, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. I hate that, Dallas was the one that was able to hire him and bring him in as a defensive coordinator. I really wish it was someplace else. I live in Arizona right now. I was raised in Arizona. I was born in Philadelphia, so obviously I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I bleed green, but even if Christian Parker could have signed to be a DC anywhere he wanted to, and the fact that it was Dallas, and Christian Parker knew what he was doing, so there's a little bit of resentment. There's a little bit of resentment in me, when it comes to Christian Parker. But it's Dallas, big market, and a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent. They really do. They still have a lot of talent, even after releasing Trayvon Diggs. They still have a lot of talent. So he has something to work with, and I'm sure he's going to do a good job. The NFC East is going to be tough for this year, I believe, with the Giants obviously hiring John Harbaugh. and Dallas getting Christian Parker. So my thing about Christian Parker going to Dallas is that they might be interested in some of the pending free agents for the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And obviously, I'm talking about Reed Blankenship. I'm talking about Nakobe Dean. Those are pretty Jalen Phillips. So and I obviously that those are some holes that we'll need to fill if we don't bring any of those guys back. And obviously, do we let Dallas Goedert walk? Do we let Jalen Phillips out of the building? Do we let Reed Blankenship out of the building? Do we let Kobe Dean out of the building? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do in replacement for Dory Jackson? So it's kind of all over the board. There's some people that believe that we should draft an offensive lineman in the first round. Maybe I'm kind of one of those people that believe that, like, at pick 23, the difference between offensive linemen at pick 23 and offensive linemen that are going to fall to the second round, there's not that much of a difference. So, do you draft the cornerback at 23 again? Like, do we take another first round cornerback? Do we not bring back Jalen Phillips? Is it going to be an edge player that we draft? Is Brandon Graham going to come back? All of those things. And regardless whether Brandon Graham comes back or not, we still need to add depth to that position. Like, we can't, like, if we want to succeed next season, especially on defense, and like I have no doubt that the defense is going to be somewhat good. I have no doubt that the defense is going to be, top 15 at least. But like, we don't want to come into this season with the defense with no edge rusher, with no defensive line depth like we did this season. So I think. And this is due to reports that have kind of come out over the last couple of days, is like the top priorities for the Philadelphia Eagles are assigning Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. So I think actually that both of those contracts, from what it sounds like, from all the reports that I've read, it sounds like both of those contracts are going to get done this offseason. And maybe not Jalen Carter, maybe not yet. But I think they are going to restructure. I think they are going to resign Jalen Carter before giving him a 5th-year option. Like, I would think that they do it. I would think that they do it maybe like mid-season for Jalen Carter. Or maybe they just both get them out of the way and go from there. Jonathan Harvey says, not sure, but I hope Reed Blankenship nor Nakobe be allowed to test the market and wind up in Dallas. That'll be crushing. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I spoke about this the other day, which is I really don't want to let Nakobe Dean go. I really think that Howie Roseman was proud of all of the Georgia players he got from that historic Georgia defense a few years ago. Obviously, Nakobe Dean was a front office favorite, is a fan favorite. He's a Vic Fangio favorite. The last 2 years under Vic Fangio, he's been an absolute playmaker. And I understand that they have Zach Bond, and I understand that we drafted Jahad Campbell, but if it were me, I would find a way to get a contract done with Nakobe Dean. I would do a contract that exceeds the expiration of Zach Bond's contract. Maybe give him like a 5-year, I don't know, $40 million deal or something along those lines, and then you look to move on from Zach Bond next year, and then you have Jahad Campbell and Nakobe Dean starting in the middle of at the middle linebacker position. My whole fear about letting Nakobe Dean walk is as Eagles fans, we know how long we've waited. We know how long we waited for that middle linebacker position to be corrected, the linebacker position in general. And now we've got 3 starting caliber middle linebackers, 3 of them. And honestly, I would rather have the, like, if I had to choose to let one go, I would rather choose to keep the younger 2, and that would be Jahad Campbell, and that would be Nakobe Dean, and I would look maybe next year to possibly trade or do whatever you can with Zach Bond. Now, I love Zach Bond. I love what he brings, but to me, and Zach Bond obviously is a leader on that defense, but to me, Nakobe is the vocal leader we need. He's the vocal leader we need. And he also illuminates that in his play style as well. And I just know that when we got Nakobe Dean back last season, the defense played with a more urgent intensity and a higher intensity. And that's when they really started to turn things around, when Nakobe Dean came back from injury. But as far as Reed Blankenship is concerned, Vic Fangio trusts him. He's not great. He's not just good. He's in between good and very, very good. He's a reliable safety, and he's a very good safety. I remember the days when we had Quentin Demps taking over for Brian Dawkins, and there were a couple others in there that we tried to replace Brian Dawkins with, and it just didn't work out. And our safety position was absolutely awful for like 5 years. But fortunately, we bring in this undrafted rookie free agent by the name of Reed Blankenship, and turns out to be a pretty decent stud. So yeah, I want to hold on to that guy. He's also the vocal leader, and he's also the on-field play caller for that secondary. And so that's the thing, is like, if you remove Reed Blankenship, what does that do? How does that affect Quinyon Mitchell? How does that affect Cooper DeJean? Does that affect them in a negative? Does that affect them in the negative way? I would think so. I mean, you have a 5-part puzzle technically in the secondary. You have your 2 starting cornerbacks, 2 on the outside. You have your 1 in the slot, and then you have your 2 safeties. Andrew Makuba, I have no worries about Andrew Makuba. I think Andrew Makuba's going to recover and come back from his injury, and I think he's going to continue his development as a strong safety in the NFL, and I think he's going to do great. And obviously Vic Fangio thinks the same way. So I'm not worried about the other safety spot. But if you remove one of those pieces to the puzzle, i.e. Reed Blankenship, how does that affect everybody? I'm sure, like, it's like, yes, does Reed Blankenship have his limitations? Sure. He's not the fastest guy. He's not, the best guy in coverage, but he's a hard hitter. He is a hard hitter. He does force the ball out. He gets interceptions by playing smart and understanding and reading coverages well. And so, like, those things are only positive things, for Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Quinyon Mitchell didn't allow a single touchdown in the regular season. Do you think that was all Quinyon Mitchell? It wasn't all Quinyon Mitchell. Now, granted, I love Quinyon Mitchell. I think Quinyon Mitchell is great. I think he's one of the best things that have happened to this secondary in the last 20 years, as well as Cooper DeJean. But, them having faith in a guy like Reed Blankenship, and the fact that they can have faith in Reed Blankenship is a huge deal. Those guys trust each other. Those guys play well together. Those guys communicate well together. And to remove Reed Blankenship, I mean, what? Let's be honest. Like, how much do you think it would actually cost to keep Reed Blankenship? I mentioned this the other day as well, which is, I think we could probably find a way to keep Reed Blankenship by giving him what CJ Gardner Johnson originally asked us for at the end of the 2023 season. Or 2020, sorry, at the end of the 2000 or after the end of the 2022 season, which is $8 million. $8 million. Give Reed Blankenship $8 million, and let bygones be, and let it go. So yeah, do we have a ton of holes to fill? Yeah, we do have a ton of holes to fill. But we got to be very careful. We got to be very careful as to adding to that list of holes. We really do. I think we really got to pay attention. Now, obviously, money's going to be tight right now. As of right now, I think it's reported that we'll have about $20 million in the cap, and obviously, there's some wide receiver restructures that need to happen. And God forbid, I hope that AJ Brown is one of those guys, and we can hold on to him. But yeah, I hope we can keep those guys. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't yet already, and the notification bell to keep up with the latest updates. I try to do this daily. So with the latest Eagles updates, rumors, concerns, or anything else throughout the league that we possibly could talk about, hit the notification bell so you can keep up. Today is my birthday, January 28th. 35. Man, oh man. Man, oh man. I don't know where the time went, but it certainly went. It went from the present into the past, and it no longer exists. Man, I really hope that the Philadelphia Eagles know what they're doing. I really hope that they know what they're doing. I have a hunch that they don't. But I also have a hunch that Nick Sirianni is closer to on his way out than I think that we're talking about. Because here's what I'll say. And I mentioned this throughout the week, which is I don't think that the offensive struggles have anything to do with the quarterback. I really don't. I think it has to do with our head coach. And I will reassure and confirm that over and over again. If there's one common denominator as far as inconsistency with the offense is concerned, it is Nick Sirianni. We've seen Jalen Hurts play in different offenses. We've seen it. Regardless of the fact that he threw 2 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers in week 1 last year, which is, by the way, when Kellen Moore was still in control of that offense, he still threw for 4 touchdowns? He threw for 4, or he threw for 3 and threw for over 300 yards, right? Isn't that right? We still won the game. We were still able to get the ball to AJ Brown deep and Devontae Smith deep and Dallas Goedert involved. The one thing about the Nick Sirianni offense, and this is the one thing that you should know every time that you go into a game, maybe you'll recognize it 5 minutes into the first quarter, which is that there are no deep shots being called. None. Nick Sirianni is afraid for this offense to take deep shots. He's afraid. And you can say, oh, yeah, well, it's the risk averse. Fuck the risk averse. You win by taking risks. In life, the only way to get the most out of a moment, the only way to get the most out of your life is to take that fucking risk. Take the fucking risk. Yeah, you might fall flat on your face. You might fall flat on your face. You might make a mistake. You might say the wrong thing. You might do the wrong thing. You might do something that you're going to regret. But the only way to learn from it is by doing that. And the only way to do that is by taking the risk. High risk, high reward. And that goes back to our offensive coordinator search. You know, before Declan Doyle, the offensive coordinator for the Bears, pulled his name out, withdrew his name, which, by the way, we still don't know why that happened. We still don't know, Philadelphia media, by the way, who are kind of like so biased they don't want to give an honest opinion and fucking annoys me. But they say, oh, well, I mean, it's not like they gave him the offer. He probably withdrew his name because they knew that they weren't. No, he withdrew his name. Declan Doyle, after 2 days, he interviewed one day, and then 2 days later, he withdrew his name. Why? He's not the only one. He's not the only one. But anyway, I'll go back to, take the high risk, high reward guy. See what happens. There's not a lot of guys left. There's not a lot of guys left that have that could garner faith and belief in doing a good job, that have experience. Now, I will say, and Matt Nagy doesn't fucking do it for me. I'm sorry. He doesn't do it for me. So nobody fucking say Matt Nagy. But please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Please leave a comment in the live chat so we can talk about whatever thoughts you have on your mind. Matt Nagy doesn't do it for me. But I will tell you this. I have come to like the idea of Jim Bob Cooter a little bit. I will say that. He at first I didn't necessarily like the idea of Jim Bob Cooter, just because I knew that he had ties with Nick Sirianni, and I thought it was going to be another Nick Sirianni guy. But actually, Jim Bob Cooter has a shit ton of experience. He was responsible for Peyton Manning's he was credited for MVP, or for Peyton Manning's MVP seasons in Indianapolis and in Denver. And he was accredited with the development of Matthew Stafford in Detroit. And he was also accredited with the current development of Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. Before Daniel Jones got hurt, Daniel Jones was on pace to be an MVP candidate in Indianapolis. And they started off 8-2, and then once Daniel Jones went down, they fell off the face of the earth. So if it were Jim Bob Cooter that they decided to bring in for an offensive coordinator position, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I didn't know, a few days ago, I didn't know all of that experience that Jim Bob Cooter had, but that's a guy with a resume that looks pretty fucking good. The only thing that worries me is that I'm pretty sure they are pretty tight, Jim Bob Cooter and Nick Sirianni. And the one thing that we don't want is Jim Bob Cooter, placating to Nick Sirianni. But then again, I go back to, which I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, Adam Schefter dropped the bomb this morning that not only could there be offensive coordinator changes, but there could be more, insinuating that there's big news to come, which is why this staff search is taking so long. I'm just saying, and like I said, it might be a little far-fetched, but they could be looking for somebody who could potentially replace Nick Sirianni either mid-season or next season. And hell, maybe even this offseason. And that was brought up on Jacob Media too. And the thing is the only question that's keeping that from being a possibility is we're kind of late in the process at this point, but there are still a lot of guys out there. There's Cliff Kingsbury. You think Charlie Weiss Jr. would stay at LSU if he got the opportunity to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles? Probably not. We could probably easily tempt him out of LSU if we were able to give him the head coaching position. Would you give Charlie Weiss Jr. the head coaching position? Understandably, hasn't called plays in the NFL, but he has called plays in offense or in college. He is a pretty creative play caller. Welcome to the chat, everybody that just joined. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment in the live chat box here to talk about whatever you want to talk about, or in the comment box. I'll eventually get to it, but yeah. Do you think? Now, granted, Charlie Weiss Jr. was one of my early favorites for the offense coordinator position. However, obviously, with the news coming out multiple times that he's going to stay at LSU, he's going to continue to work under Lane Kiffin. But if if they were able to guarantee him a head coaching position, would he do it? Jonathan Harvey says, Charlie Weiss Jr., I wouldn't give head coaching job, but allow him to gather experience. Yeah, I mean, personally, I would rather him do that first. But here's the thing: would you rather have Charlie Weiss Jr., who has creative concepts in his offense, or would you rather continue with Nick Sirianni, whose scheme is so basic that the dude will only take 2 or 3 deep shots, or I wouldn't even say that, 1 to 3 deep shots every week? That's not Jalen Hurts, guys. That's not Jalen Hurts. I went back and I looked at Jalen Hurts' college tape, his Oklahoma tape, and his Alabama tape. Jalen Hurts threw the ball all over the field in college. Now, granted, like he had the likes of Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, John Mechie. Like he had those guys. Granted, but like he was still he still threw it all over the field. He threw it to wide receivers that were running more complex routes. So this whole narrative that Jalen Hurts can't run a complex system is asinine. It's absolutely asinine. And that brings us back to Nick Sirianni. I think it's Nick Sirianni. I think it's Nick Sirianni's influence. And you know what? I'll be completely honest with you. I was a Nick Sirianni guy. I was a Nick Sirianni defender. But after seeing what I saw, this year, and trust me, I saw it a little bit last year, but I defended the head coach that has the winning percentage that he has. But again, I think that's more about the quarterback than it is the head coach. And the defense to back myself up right there is Jalen Hurts has won every single place that he's been. Every single place that he's been. Nick Sirianni has not. Now, granted, Nick Sirianni hasn't been a head coach anywhere else, but it could be like a Belichickian type of situation where Belichick coasted off of Brady. Now, everybody thought that it was Belichick in the beginning, and everybody thought that it was not only Brady but Belichick. And there were some camps that believed that it was just Belichick instead of Brady. But what did we see Brady do? What did we see Brady do? He Michael Jordaned it. He LeBron'd it. He went to another place and won the Super Bowl. That's the player. That's the player. I think the inefficiencies are Nick. I think the inefficiencies are Nick. And there's if there's any fan base that can handle change, it's this fan base. Believe it or not, it is this fan base. We moved on from Donovan McNabb. We got the Michael Vick experience. We moved on from Vick. We got the Nick Foles experience. We moved on from Nick Foles. We had faith for Sam Bradford. That ended quickly. But then we had Carson Wentz. We're going to put faith in our players. Here's the one thing that I can say for sure. I know that Jalen Hurts is capable of a lot more. I know that A.J. Brown is capable of a lot more. I know that Devontae Smith is capable of a lot more. Devontae Smith should be a number one wide receiver, could be a number one wide receiver for half the teams in this league. I know that Saquon Barkley is capable of a lot more. I know that Tank Bigsby is capable of a lot more. I know that Dallas Goedert is capable of a lot more. This coaching staff, this current coaching staff, has not, and I will go out on a limb here. Actually, it's not even a fucking limb. It's a full-on, 32-inch fucking 32-inch in diameter fucking, whatever. This coaching staff can't get the most out of their personnel. They don't have the wherewithal or the knowledge or the courage or the creativity or the understanding of the game on a play-to-play basis or from an intuitive standpoint to get the most out of these players on a week-by-week basis. They just don't. You look back at the Rams game. You look what happened back in that Rams game, in the second half of that Rams game, during the regular season when Jalen Hurts stormed back. Jalen Hurts at the beginning of the third quarter was seen yelling at Kevin Patullo. Now, we all know what was going on. Jalen Hurts was like, no, fuck you. This is what we're running. Jalen Hurts brought our team back by 21 points, and we won the fucking game. Now, everybody, I understand everybody wants to, give credit to, give credit to Jordan Davis for blocking the field goal and then returning it in for a touchdown. But, that offense got going because Jalen Hurts took over that game. Jonathan says, I would go with Weiss Jr. over Nick, but Nick does bring value just as a head coach. But under Nick, Eagles been beneath standards. I think Nick was an experiment hire. Nick is god awful basic. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do think it was. I do think it was an experiment hire in the sense also that they wanted to go with somebody that they could control. And I don't mean to say it as blunt as I'm saying it, but as if it's like a puppeteer, as if it's like a puppeteer type of thing. But they certainly wanted to bring in somebody that would be submissive to them, that would submit to them, and also do what they say, and also somebody that they could work collaboratively with over time if they were successful. And however, it goes back to what Nick Foles said earlier in the week on his podcast, which is like everybody knew that Kevin Petullo's offense was failing from the very I will say third week. I'll be nice and say that from week 3, everybody knew that this offense wasn't going to work. And the fact that Nick Sirianni couldn't take over and right the ship is worrisome. It's beyond worrisome. It's mind-boggling, and in fact, it's catastrophic. That's a problem. You can bring anybody else. You can bring anybody else to be the head coach to be the head coach for your franchise, who can manage players, who could manage the clock, who could do all of those things, and probably have a more creative outlook on the offense than Nick Sirianni has. So that's why I say I think they're looking at all avenues right now, and I think that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes and underneath the surface than just the hiring of a new offensive coordinator. That's what I believe. John says, don't like Nick limiting other players like Tank, Grant, and Dotson. Yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention Dotson. John Dotson, I feel like, is an underrated, underappreciated player. I think he's actually a really good player. And honestly, from that draft class, he was one of the players that I wanted the Eagles to draft because I understood that we needed another wide receiver. And I was happy that I thought it was a steal that we got him for just a 3rd-round pick when we made the trade with the Commanders. And I still think he's great. He was great in the Super Bowl last year. And the fact that his, like, if you go back and look at it, like week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, like Jalen had the deep inside post wide open to Jahan Dotson, and they completed it for like a 45-yard gain. Not once did I see that again after that week. Not once. And that goes back to our point, right? That goes back to our point of like, this staff just doesn't know how to utilize their fucking talent. They just don't. They don't know how to utilize their fucking talent. And yeah, they included some new wrinkles, but it seems like and by new wrinkles, I'm talking about like Dallas Goedert in the fucking red zone. But anytime they they utilize a new wrinkle, it's like they forget all of the other basic, like, foundational shit that works on a consistent basis. Like, okay, so the tush push, for example, it's not the greatest play in the world, but like, for example, like, okay, so it didn't work all that well for a few weeks. So you abolish the fucking play? You abolish the fucking play for the rest of the season? And I'm not just talking about like 8 games for the rest of the season. I'm talking about like 11 or 12 games for the rest of the season. They abolished the play for 11 to 12 games. And then finally you bring it back in the wild card game and it works 100% of the time. What were they, 3 for 3 in the wild card game with the fucking tush push? That's the shit that I'm fucking talking. That's the shit that I'm fucking talking about. Is like on a week to week basis, it's like they don't have a consistent offensive scheme. They didn't have a scheme that they could hang their head on. Sean McVay has a basic scheme set that he will die on, that he will literally put his life on the line for. Kyle Shanahan's the same way. Todd Monken is the same way. This team? No, they're figuring it out. It's changing every week. They don't know what they're going to fucking do from week to week. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. Talking about, Smitty, obviously, I've already said could be a number 1 wide receiver, for more than half of the fucking rest of the teams in this league. Dallas Goedert, could be a tight end that is a 1,000-yard type of tight end. Here's what I think is going to happen. Just an early prediction. I think Travis Kelce's going to retire, and Goddard's going to walk. And Kansas City is going to get the most out of Dallas Goedert for the final years of his career. and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fine. Mahomes bounces back next year because the Chiefs signed Dallas Goedert. Tank Bigsby is another guy. Tank Bigsby is another guy. It's like he did nothing but show you productive play all season when you were playing him. And I was surprised that the Jaguars actually gave him up for so little, to be honest with you. That was the trade that I was like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be a good trade. My brothers weren't sure about it, but I was like, no, Tank Bigsby was a fucking badass as a rookie. Like he took over for Travis Etienne in Jacksonville last year when Travis Etienne got hurt and did a phenomenal job. Like, how was he available? How was he available? Sorry, it's my cat. Actually, my cat's name is Bisbee. And yeah, I mean, how could you not utilize him more? We didn't do a good enough job utilizing him in the playoffs. We didn't do a good enough job utilizing him in the regular season. We did later for sure. And honestly, like, we understand that Saquon Barkley had too many fucking drops when it came to catching it out of the backfield. Well, guess who else can catch it out of the backfield, and maybe even a little bit better? Tank Bigsby. So why wouldn't you call more shit like that, or maybe have Tank Bigsby and Saquon Barkley on the field at the same time? Like, what the, like, WTF? Am I right? Like, the talent that we have on this team, like, creates infinite amount of possibilities. My 5-year-old nephew could have done a better fucking job calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles offense this past year. It just, all right, buddy. Yeah, he likes to hang on my shoulder. Yeah, he just likes to hang there, but unfortunately he doesn't know that he likes to dig in, and so it does hurt a little bit. But I am wearing a denim jacket, so I can't feel it as much. Jonathan says, "Wow, Dallas to KC would be something. That idea is very probable. Makes sense." Yeah, I mean, Dallas Goedert and Travis Kelce, like, are built the same way. They kind of play the same way. Obviously Kelce has made himself a Hall of Fame type of career just based off of the improvisational skills, but, like, obviously that's also something that was built over the course of your relationship with your quarterback as well. So if you're going to tell me that Dallas Goedert can't build that type of relationship with Patrick Mahomes, I got a bridge to sell you. I certainly think that he can, most certainly. So we'll just, I really do think that's a high possibility. I really do think that that's a high possibility. I don't know what Travis Kelce would be getting if he didn't retire this year. Obviously, all due respect, like, it just doesn't seem like his heart's in the game anymore. And it does seem like he's slowing down. But yeah, it makes sense. And I think the Chiefs will have a bounce back year. Obviously they're not getting rid of Andy Reid. They're not getting rid of Patrick Mahomes. They still have Pacheco, who's been dealing with injuries over the last couple of years, but, like, they're going to get some guys back, and they still have playmakers on that offense. Everything as far as the Chiefs are concerned, like, Jonathan says, "Beautiful cat. I'm more cat guy than dogs." I love both. To be honest with you. Cats. Yeah, but I do have a soft spot for cats. I have a soft spot for dogs. It's hard. Like, I grew up with 3 dogs and 3 cats in my household, and that was a constant. And so, but yeah. Jonathan says, been screaming all season to see Saquon and Tank together on the field, and very frustrating when Tank does well and then he is kept off field. That Washington game for 1 to get 2 seed. Yeah, they Tank was doing so well, and then they removed him from the game in the third quarter. Like, why? Again, that's I don't know if that was Nick Sirianni or Kevin Petullo, but there's plenty of times throughout the season we saw that. And that's not even just Tank. That it's Saquon too. Like, Saquon would get a full head of steam going in games, and then they would pull him. And actually, the Chargers game is an example of that. The Chargers game is a perfect example of that. Saquon was playing really well in the Chargers game, and then we pulled him, and then the offense got inconsistent. Either way, the offense shouldn't get inconsistent, even if Saquon is pulled off the field. And I understand you got to give your players rest. So I just go back to the concepts, and I go back to the play calls, and I go back to the final play call in the wild card game was a microcosm of just how bad the offense has actually been, and how inconsistent the offense had been all season long. And yeah, they got to find somebody. They they got to find somebody. Obviously, now that Joe Brady's off the board, Declan Doyle's off the board, I think my top 2 for the offense coordinator position is probably Nathan Schillhouse, pass game coordinator for the Rams, and then Jim Bob Cooter. But I really want to find out. Who it's going to be, and whatever this additional news that Adam Schefter hinted at this morning. But we will see. I will do my best to keep everybody updated on a daily basis as far as the birds are concerned. But I appreciate you guys joining in. Please please subscribe, please hit the notification bell. Please drop a comment. If you didn't leave a comment in the chat, today, I will definitely get to the comments that you leave in the comment box sooner rather than later. So I appreciate you guys coming in so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Happy Wednesday. Happy January 28th. It is my birthday. So on behalf of my birthday, I hope that everybody has a beautiful rest of your day as well. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Peace out. Go Birds, baby.